This is a great question. Why did New York City pass a housing law that both landlords and renters don't like that much? This is the case with most laws. They get implemented to solve one problem, but then it creates another. And this is exactly what happened with this law that passed in 2019. If this is your first time seeing me, my name is Alia Mohammed. I'm the co-founder of Open Igloo, and I share tips and info on renting in New York City, so be sure to give us a follow. So the law is that renters are not allowed to pay rent upfront. Landlords are not allowed to ask for rent up front, and they're not allowed to accept rent up front, even if the renter offers it. This was a pretty common practice in New York City, especially for renters who may not have been financially eligible on paper, but they did have a significant amount of savings that they could go to the landlord and say, hey, I know I just graduated or I just moved to this country, I don't have credit, but how about I pay 4, 5, 6 months rent up front and you give me the apartment? And this was a way to get landlords to be comfortable with the tenant that didn't on paper look picture perfect. So while this seems like a reasonable practice, it did become exploitative. Exploitative of low income renters, of new immigrants. As a renter, you lose all of your leverage if you've paid a year up front. You can't just easily move if something goes wrong. There's another concerning element to this practice of, well, what if you don't have the money to pay 4, 5, 6 months up front? The other issue is that lower income renters can get excluded from the market if they're constantly being beaten out by renters that can afford to pay all that money up front. And then over time, does it create this reality where landlords prefer to take tenants that can pay rent up front? So the law was very well intended. We don't want landlords to take advantage of low income renters or of new immigrants. But what's happened is it's just created this new market of third-party guarantors. Landlords are no longer allowed to collect rent up front, so they are requiring a lot of their applicants to go get a guarantor. Some of these guarantor services can cost as much as 2 or 3 months rent, depending on your credit profile. But this guarantor fee is non-refundable. You don't get it back. Whereas at least paying 2 or 3 months up front to the landlord, that would go towards your rent payments. So I get both sides, but if I were to rewrite the law, I would allow renters to pay rent up front, but maybe put a cap on it, 2, 3 months maximum. It gives the landlords the comfort that they need, and it prevents renters from getting bullied into paying 6 months or 12 months up front and then being stuck in potentially a problematic apartment. What do you think of this law? Do you want to see it changed? Let us know in the comments.